So I never celebrated my birthday. And I have this thing that nothing great happened the day I was born. Just one member in the world population increased.
Right.
And so I'm sitting in NCC office, and I did not know there's one guy who tracks everyone's
Mm,
date of birth.
mm.
The whole crew walks in one day, sir. When is the party? I'm like, what party? Because I don't actually didn't remember. It's my birthday, 9th of Jan. I'm like, what party? Happy birthday. Oh, no, oh, okay. Thanks for reminding. Yeah, fine. It's just another day. Yesterday was 8, today's 9, tomorrow will be 10th. No, 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 you have to give a party. You have to give a party. I'm like, and there was, so it's a very nice thing actually. They forced me to give a party.
Right.
I'm like, okay. I said, I will not arrange anything. You guys will sort it out. I will only pay for it.
Mm.
So the entire IT and the ERP team, they came. So that's the gift they gave me. So actually, I was almost neutral. This, because the guy who bought it, I actually asked them how much it cost. 20,000 rupees. This too. I paid 22,000 rupees for the whole evening. I'm like, okay, I'm just only 2,000 rupees down. But I really appreciate it. But I really appreciate it. It's not the money calculation, right? Because NCC is not it's a very political place. The culture is not very sophisticated, but what it had was genuineness. People were genuinely happy. And then some of these guys will come, some of them has drunk a little bit because I was the crazy guy, right? The guy who talks with them using the word effort in between. I never do that in meetings, right? It's one to one. Someone who doesn't show the air of boss goes 3 level. I mean, I never used to in my cabin anyway. So and then they opened up even more, right? Because it's outside the office, outside that context. I really appreciated it because I really felt good when I thought about it. And I told these guys, you know what? Thank you for forcing me to give you a party because I don't know how much you guys enjoyed. I really enjoyed it. So that's the gift. Actually, because we go randomly, I really think, and I think I'll appreciate it more and more the more months go in between me and the NCC. So some of the stuff I had done there, the general benchmarking quality wise, they may not be the top of the world, but they had other characteristics which compensated. See, when the ransomware attack happened, in 45 days, we brought the whole thing back to normal. Within the 15 days, we had a green line where the company was critical systems were already working clean. The rest was completely separated. That was possible only because some guys, not some guys, 90% of the guys would just turn up at 9 in the morning and they won't go home until 3 o'clock in the next day morning. Then they'll go home, have a shower, 9 o'clock they're back and never asked. I never told them you have to come at 9 o'clock, go at 3 in the morning. Absolutely volunteering. Volunteering in a way that it's not even volunteering. It's almost like a bunch of guys just taken a challenge. We will do whatever needs to be done.
What do you think it takes to build that level of ownership in an organization?
Interesting question. So if you ask me, one thing that was different in there compared to my other companies, long service in the same company, they are all been working together. They play humongous politics among themselves. This is the worst politics you can ever imagine. Unsophisticated politics also sometimes. But I think it almost became like a maybe. I'm not saying that is the right. Someone else can look at it in a different way. I think when you have worked for 20, 25 years in the same company, remember, it doesn't pay you the best salary. So two things, right? Allegiance to the company and allegiance to your own team members, your boss, your people around you. I think what they did for me, they did not know me for 25 years. I was the guy who could not speak Telugu, spoke in English most 99.9% of the time. But somehow, after the first year, because I was busy with the other drama with Accenture, after the first year when I got involved with them, the IT team, and then we formed the ERP, the digitalization team. But let's focus on the IT team, which was the bulk of it. Once I got involved, they did not have a 25-year history with me, but Even to this day, some of these guys call me when they get in, like, and check like, how are you doing? Where are you? When are you coming to Hyderabad? I would say they have there's one layer of allegiance to the company, which might be a function of the number of years they have been there. So they have a sense of ownership, although they own nothing, to be honest. There's no share option. So the very old ones, they got a good share option. When it got to the IPO, when they did the IPO, they got rich. But I don't think, because these guys are money orientated, but not on these things. I think it was pure allegiance to the place you have been working, which is your second home. The people you have been working for such a long time. I'll give you a simple example. I don't know whether it might sound, this story might be a bit depressing for our publishing. There was this guy, I won't name because he's a very private person. One day, 6:30 p.m., I'm living, and he's one of the quietest guys. He sits in the data center, doesn't, everybody knows he's very reserved. He has one or two very close friends. And for some reason, when the IT incident happened, I was fairly new, right? And I had stayed off IT together. The guy who was running it before, I told him, you carry on running. I've got all these other things to deal with. But when that happened, I had to step in. So someone who was not looking. But I had my conversations and I spotted him. This guy is technically very good. So one of the directors, one of the family member, he goes, there's a board meeting and there's an actual board meeting, because coincidentally, that's the day the actual board is also meeting for one. So he goes, so the plan was, I'll have to read out a statement to the board. If they ask any question, give them enough high level answer because it's absolutely fresh. One of the family member directors, he asked me, so who are you bringing to help support you? Because he knew that I was not involved with all these things. And I went and mentioned this guy. Much later, the guy I said I will bring him. He goes, sir, can I ask you a question? He goes, why did you mention my name? You did not know me at all at that time. I'm like, no, when we were discussing, I spotted that you knew what you were talking about. So anyway, to give a sense of allegiance to the team members, and it goes back to going beyond your job. This guy, one day, 6:30 p.m., I'm planning to leave office. I'm just really wrapping up. This guy walks in and he's very private. He never talks to anyone. I sit on the 8th floor. He's on the 6th floor. Unless I go, he will never come. He's happy in his own little world. He's a super sysadmin, technically very good. Whenever there was a complex thing on the infra side, I'll just go to him, ask, because other people will not be able to give me the answer. But he's also very opinionated. I used to also have argument with him. He had a very weird sense of security. His basic security is don't let anyone do anything on the computer. I'm like in that case, you won't have a job. Okay, he didn't say that, but he had a very aggressive attitude towards security. He walks in. He doesn't speak much, pulls the chair. And everybody had open access in my office. By this time, this guy knew they can walk in. I don't have the ears and all these things of Indian bosses. He's there. And I know him enough to know. A lot of these guys used to come and sit in my cabin. There was two guys who used my cabin more than I ever did in my entire career because they will be always there. They used to use it as their own office. So he came. I didn't bother. I just put the bag away. He sits down. Still doesn't say anything. I said, so. And I just simply said, so. And then I see a drop of tear from his eyes. And he's a very private person. He's not one to even show emotion.
Based on what you've described, it doesn't seem like a very flat hierarchy, right? It's very much like a
This is,
military regime.
and I used to joke, I have seen the military academy and I know I had some exposure to that hierarchy structure. It was worse than that. Military is more flat than NCC culturally, but in my team, it was absolutely flat. I did not create. That's the way I operate. I don't give a damn, right? Day to day, it doesn't matter what designation I have, right? If I have to go and speak to the sentry at the gate for the work, I'll go and talk to him. It doesn't matter who I am. If it is most efficient for me to walk over there and get the information, I'll go and walk. And that's the way I've operated all my life. So I think, and now it is gloating, I think someone else should have said this, that those team members, if you go and speak to them, and they speak your language, so you will have a much better, rich conversation. They would say we ended up having after 1 year after I joined, it was flat. It was flat. People knew they can just walk in. And I was never in my cabin. My cabin was on the 8th floor. I was out on the 7th floor where all these guys sat. Wherever there's chair, you will see me dragging a chair. MD will sometime look for me. He had to dial everyone. And then I told MD's PA, just call my mobile phone. My mobile phone is always with me. Because here's a culture of a company where the senior guys, who those have a cabin, they will never leave their cabin. So by default, he will just look at his, a PA will just dial the extension. 100% guarantee he will pick up the other guy. And they had a cultural shock. They would call me. And then I asked, once I got to know, I started chatting with this peer. And he will say, you make me, to catch hold of you make me dial so many. I said, why? So they also have their humor informations, right? So they will dial my extension. They won't find me because I haven't picked it up. Then they will try dialing other places because the rumor mill in the building knows which of the other cabins I go and sit down. And third or fourth round, they will find me.
Right,
That's when I told her, just call my mobile. I've always got my mobile on me.
right, right.
So anyway, so this is the culture, right? People never
Mm,
step out, always inside. And what probably I did was, is the where I worked all my life. No, generally no boss shows bossiness. Generally, there would be weird ones, there might be exception ones, but you are your first name, that's it, on a day-to-day basis in most cases. If we were discussing, and you know it very well, right? I just operated that way. I did not ask them to change. I just operated the way I was operating in London. And I think what I automatically did was it allowed them to be themselves. It took one year. And then these guys will just walk in, whatever issues, complain against their other colleague, this issue, that issue, whatever it is. So went to the extent this guy walks in, right? He's a young guy, 40 to 43. His wife has got stage 5 terminal cancer. So things you have to do in India as a manager, you will never deal that within UK itself generally because the system, people are more private, etc. So when this happens, this is a critical guy. This guy does some stuff that nobody in the company is able to do. I know their competencies. So the guy who was running the IT before, I told him after the conversation, are you okay for me to share this with this other guy? I said, if you say no, it's absolutely fine. Then it will be just between the two of us. Nobody needs to know. No, it's okay. You can talk to him. First thing I did was immediately got a service provider to be able to do that same service. But that's the work side. So I don't know how Harvard Business Case probably will do a business case on it in terms of what happened. When his wife ended up in the hospital, which turned out to be towards the end, because it happened within 2.5 months. So guy who used to run IT before and me, so he was reporting to me. We two decided we will not share it with the team because this particular guy is such a private person. We should respect that. That we should not go and tell everybody in the company his wife has got cancer because it should be his job, not ours. We should give him the cover. So I said, you stay at home. I will sign off your attendance things. If we really desperately need you, we'll call you. Otherwise, don't worry about this thing. Just keep the laptop. If you are at home, just keep the laptop close to you in case. Otherwise, we won't bother you. And one day, the wife needs blood. And I think in India nowadays, the rule is to take blood, you have to give blood. We discussed, and the guy who used to run the place before me, he has been in the company for 25 years. So he knows everything, how the system works. I was sitting in his cabin. He gets a call and he says me this. I said, how are we going to arrange it? He goes, oh, no, CC. What? He goes, no, we'll send our guys. And he dials some guys. I'm sitting there, right? He calls in, goes, guys, can you go to this hospital and you'll have to give blood? Okay. Even in army, they will ask why. So this is what I mean, right? So this is maybe a benefit of hierarchy, that culture is so bad, you cannot even question your boss. They go and they give blood without knowing why the hell they're doing it. I remember the only question he asked when he was asking, have you given blood in the last 7 days? Because I think there's a rule that you cannot give blood within
Yeah.
a 7 days or something. No, no, no. Okay. Did you have COVID in the last 15 days or something? Did the COVID just after COVID? No. Okay. One guy, coincidentally, one guy had given blood. He goes, no, you can't go. So 5 guys were sent, and not just send, go right away. It's not even like go tomorrow. Go right away, go and give blood. Now, towards the end, the stage became that. So I don't know the whole story, but he's not very connected to the why. Maybe he doesn't have a wider family, or he doesn't have the relationship. He needs support because we're worried like this guy. So, and he owned us. So we said, then the rule became, by this time we have told that she is not very well at all. And he started telling other people. You know what used to happen? This guy would be in the hospital. He would never be on his own. Someone from the office 24 hours. And it went to the stage, he would be forced to go home. One of his colleagues is in the office, in the hospital. So which company will do this? And these guys have got their own families and full-fledged everything.
There are a few. Actually, I've heard similar things about GRT, this jewelry company that's now it's a conglomerate now. They've expanded into hotels, all sorts of stuff. I've heard good things about. So this is the element of where it's like a promoter family driven company with sort of quote unquote Hindu values, right? Which
I would say Indian. I would say Indian culture, right? The
Indian
whole
culture,
Indian
yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, right? I have two sides of it. I have this English word. I would say the European perspective at it. So you're right. The management, the founders, the promoters, they have this whole thing that this is our family, and this business entity was similar. If you ask, so I used to get picked up by I officially deserved the card, which I never used, but I will get the card to go to the airport, etc. And me being me, I would always speak to the drivers, which no one else would do in the office. So I got very friendly with them. And I'm also, and for me, that was to know, I did not have a purpose. It's just like another human being and me in the car. It's a boring 35-kilometer drive to the airport. You talk to someone. All of them were like 20 years, 25 years. And I asked them, why are you here for such a long time? Don't you look for a job? He goes, no, they look after you well. I said, I know they don't pay you well. He goes, no, but when there's a crisis, they look after you well. Now, my European perspective is, because they don't pay you well, you're not able to look after yourself. They have to do this charity. I don't think that's right. You pay them a good market rate, provision for a good insurance, which they didn't, to be honest. I picked up with this and had a fight with the company. Because what they did was, the more senior you are, the more salary you get, basically, you have a better insurance cover. It should be inverted. The one with more money has got a broader shoulder. The one with less salary is in a much precarious condition. So I would say that probably happens a lot. You would pay them in a way they cannot look after themselves independently. And then when there's a crisis, you step in, you're the messiah. No, you're not. There's no need to messiah. Pay the right rate.
Right.
That's my probably 20 years in Europe perspective. I don't think most Indians or maybe even Asia, they would say, no, it's a very good company, it's a good culture. Employees actually don't take my perspective. Employees take that perspective. Good people who look after you. And that is the general 99.9% of the people think that way. And I've seen it in action. The kind of stuff I've gone through, one of the guys, all of a sudden one day I go, someone says, Suresh is in hospital. Like, what happened to Suresh? He was having a brain surgery into next half an hour. I went to the office late that day. What? He ended up in hospital close to his home, and this is the differences. Turns out previous day he had some issue. He could not see in his eyes. So his brother-in-law and his wife immediately shifted him to a local hospital. And this is how this company was, right? It's like an army. Through chain of command, one of the administrator gets to know that this guy's in hospital. And there's certain hospitals in Hyderabad where NCC has good control. The company gets to, through the channel it goes, instruction comes down, no, not in that hospital, pay that hospital whatever they want, shift him to this hospital, AIG. You know AIG, right?
Yeah.
Shift him to AIG. And the instruction that, and this is where the efficiency comes. The instruction went out, pay that hospital whatever the bill is, whatever it is, pay them right away. Shift him immediately to AIG because we can control there. He is a lowly guy with a shit salary. So next day morning, I'm told he's having an again, the guy who used to lead IT before, he sat down, he's a part of the IT team. And we're saying, this is weird research. So it turns out he will have an operation. Then after a few weeks, he'll have another operation because they'd open his skull, the part of the skull in his refrigerator freezer. And a month later, they have to again do something and then put it back. And we're saying, yeah, we're looking at it, probably it's 40 lakh or something.
Yeah.
Hey, and the insurance cover 2 lakhs. I think it's 2 days of medicine in India nowadays. Exactly. And this
Okay.
is my gripe. Why would you have such a cover? So, and I'll tell you why you have a cover. Indian society is selfish. When the decision takers have got a good cover, they think everybody has got a good cover, or they don't care. One of the two. But anyway, so when this happened, right? So I had a very good relationship with most of the second generation of the. I mean, even the first generation, but I didn't speak to them only when required. But the second generation was closer to my. Well, I was a lot older than most of them except one guy. But I had a very open relationship. So I called up one of this guy and I said, this thing happened. He said, I heard. I said, how the hell is this guy going to pay for it? I said, we are planning of starting a collection inside the company. Because I said, so what happened was I went to the hospital. His wife also happened to work with us. I recruited her because with the kind of salary we pay, we cannot recruit anybody. So you have to get the wives. So, and she was very good. I spoke to her. Then I told one of the guys in the company, let's go and meet her in the hospital because the IG is just down the road. That's when I met his father. Real nice. Wife and father-in-law doesn't have a good relationship. There was a lot of people. So I told the guy with whom I went, I said, see, these 7, 8, 9 people are there, they'll be gone in 2 days. They have to go back to their life. She will be on her own. We need to make sure we look after her because she needs the maximum support right now. Anyway, that day after I came back from the hospital, I spoke to this guy from the family and I said, look, I am looking at a big number here. The way I don't know the IG rate. And he goes, and then I said, I'm thinking of asking the team to start collection. This guy goes, they all call me Arindam, full name. Arindam, no collection. I'll pay it. So in the end, he ended up paying from his own pocket, more than 20 lakhs. Now, if you had a proper cover, you did not need to do this charity, right?
True, but it's like a multi-layer thing actually.
Yeah, exactly. I am not undermining his generosity.
No, no,
He did not have to do.
there's no question about it. My viewpoint is, first of all, this is a outlier situation. General corporate covers are designed in that way that, certain levels have, by default, they have higher coverage because bottom line, you're just valued more. It's bottom line basically why CEOs get paid more than the frontline workers. And that I think is the piece that we actually need to explore, which is,
It should be the other way around, right? If you sack everybody and leave the CEO, it won't run. But technically, you can sack the CEO, the company will still run if you've got the lower guys. Imagine a manufacturing line, right?
I mean, it assumes a lot of things actually, your statement, right?
Yeah.
It's like, then who would provide the direction for even
No,
one day? Who take the
correct. So
decisions?
I will also
First
justify
of all,
why this.
it assumes that there is excellent succession plan, which means that the CXOs are already good enough to be able to take those decisions on their own. I imagine even in one day, we would see, not one day, in a few hours, we would see things start to crumble at even the best run organizations.
Absolutely. Because the CEO takes decisions different to what the shop floor guy is doing, right? So you are right. So I'm actually going to justify why the CEO deserves the pay he gets. He may not be producing it with his own hand, but he's taking decisions that are critical to run the shop floor. I am short of working capital. Which bank do I go to, right? So your finance department can do many things. There's so many other movies. I've seen this in front of the MD, various issues, right? The whole, I'm not going to mention the name, the consulting company should be had. Those are complex stuff with board and all these things. They deserve. I am saying, when I say inverted, I don't mean that it should be more than the CEO's insurance cover, but it should not be a proportion of the as a percentage of the salary or so low. It should be market based, realistic. Because in India, I discovered another thing. In India, the hospitals run this way. Are you paying by cash? Then it's 3 lakhs. Oh, your insurance, it's 6 lakhs. I think it's a scam. I think they should really cut down on it.
They should.
Same doctor, same medicine, same everything. So if that is your market condition, market structure from a consumption perspective, you factor that in and you say 2 lakh is actually equivalent to 1 lakh of cash. And what can you get in 1 lakh? Probably can't even, if you have got slightly a little bit more complicated, you are close to exhausting your 2 days of medicine. So, but going back to your original question, the culture, I think is the family value where function of along with so the family run company, so the family value has somehow come into the company. The original friends who they hired and the family members they hired are still there, so it's still the family value. And then you have got people who are working for 25 years, so they have kind of become an extended family.
Yeah. So I mean, how does now, given the regimentation of it and given how people are so set in their ways, so to speak, right? How does change management work in these sort of scenarios? Does it work
Doesn't
at
work.
all?
It doesn't work. Cannot work.
Even
I'll
for the
tell you why.
better, like when
No,
even when the
for
bad
the
bit has been made clear to them and all of that.
see, I would make a controversial statement because it just came to my head. The value statement you make would be what? A financial value statement or a pragmatic, logical value statement, right? But their value is an emotional, cultural value. Isn't that the fundamental difference? The value, the word value is same, but they're coming from two different perspectives, right? Here, value means
Rational left brain versus
exactly.
emotional right brain setup, right?
Absolutely. So here I'm supporting this person or paying his everything, not because he's valuable to me as a revenue earning thing. I value him because he has been with me. He's part of my family, or it's my responsibility to look after him. There is no calculation happening there. So in such a
But how does it impact the top line and bottom line? If people aren't judged or people aren't driven based on performance or some sort of market driven KPI, how does it impact overall org KPI?
very good question. I think it doesn't work. I think these are companies generally, and a sector may play a particular role here. This company was in a particular sector, as you know. Um, it don't work. They will always be underperforming, in my view, relative to where they could have been if they were more professionalized, more logical, database decision, less emotion, more facts. If they went there, their top line would be better, their bottom line would be better, but probably they will stop doing some of the other stuff they do, right? Like paying for someone's thing. But so for me, I would rather that an organization drove, I would rather that an organization actually drove its decisions and its operations guided by facts and logic and less by emotion. So I also know what happens as a result, right? The softer stuff goes out. But my this is my personal feeling. It's okay because your logical decision making, your fact based, evidence based decision making means you're doing everything in a rational way.
Right, but that actually segues well into my next question that I was getting, which was how would we define an organization? Is an organization like a living, breathing combination of people, emotions, and some sort of workflows, right? That gets to some value generated for shareholders, etc. Is it that, or is it just a set of people working together and having fun while doing it, or feeling happy and fulfilled while they're doing it?
Yeah. I remember reading a lot of this binders that LBS used to give for our MBA. And there was this organizational design and everything, right? So you read a whole bunch of research papers. MBA, you don't read the whole 32 pages, you read this fast skim through. There's various perspectives. Now it goes back to which one, from a reader perspective, you read all of those things, all of them make sense, but which one attracts you more? Which ones resonates with you more? So there's two I remember. I don't know why I remember. Maybe that resonates with me more. One way of looking at it is it's a collection of people with a common purpose or a common goal, common objective, common mission, whatever it is. There is another model. There are many models, right? These are the only two I remember. The other one says an organization is nothing but a collection of uh, myths. Basically, it's a culture, myth, and all of those things, right? That culture is a function of myth, right? Like a myth is what creates culture along with various other stuff. It's a collection of people and of processes and all of those things with a similar culture. I don't know which one, but there are various other models. Ultimately, I think what is an organization, if you want to look at from a strategic perspective, I would go fall back to military because that's where the strategy came from, right? I think generally it is mission oriented. You may not know the mission in the case of military. Your particular mission on a given mission may be different, but the wider mission is very clear, which would be when you join the organization, you have a bigger cause, and you will define it yourself in your own head. It won't be the same for everyone. But if you know that what you're going to do is, say, defend your country, and to defend, and that's the wider organization, the goal you are joining. So it becomes your goal. You play a small part. The general plays a bigger part. The prime minister also plays a part, but you will never meet those two guys. You're a cog in the wheel. And a lot of the foot soldiers don't even think about it, they just join. But ultimately, the system organizes them in a way they're all aligned. For me, that's an organization. So when I say to them from the top, make everybody go left, the instruction goes all the way down, everybody's turning left at the same time. Efficiency. So I would go back there, right? Now, how you structure and define it is various things, right? So, for example, I can tell you, I told you the other day, right? I watched a lot of this regiment, there's generally special forces, but other soldiers. If an officer, if an officer, you join a regiment, the first set of thing you go through when you go and join the regiment is, if you're an officer, they'll take you to the officer's mess. The officer's mess has got all the entire history. So in the Indian Army, it will be for whenever the regiment started, it could be 120 years. You have to learn every single piece of history of the regiment. Seniors will actually test you. You won't be and this is kind of a training again. So you have to read all the famous soldiers of the regiment, the famous battles they did, what actually happened, what went right, what went wrong, blah, blah, blah. And you have to know it inside out. That's the cultural assimilation. That's what they're putting the culture in you, right? So when I listen to these interviews, these guys would say, so this particular guy said, when I joined para, I didn't know where I was joining. I just wanted to join para because my father was in para. But my father never told what he did. And then he goes, what? When I went to the regiment, they made me do it. I read it and then I realized, I want to be like that guy. This is basically goes, when you go read through this thing, you realize, now I understand that's my job profile. This is the job profile. I think this is nothing but getting you assimilated to their culture. And it's almost like an osmosis, right?
Right.
Slowly getting into you.
They're giving you
Then
role
you pass
models.
it on.
They're giving you
Yes,
role models to emulate, and they're
yes.
giving you essentially also sort of performance targets, because to get on the wall, you need to be pretty special.
And at what stage it starts, I'll give you a very simple thing, right? If you look at my case, short, not even completed, hardly started, to be honest, before I left. It starts from the selection process itself, because they are doing some, see, what are they looking at? So I remember, so they have a lot of psychologists. So the SSB, I cracked it on my first go. I had zero training. I did not go to any coaching. I had a childhood dream that I forgot, blah, blah, different story. I just rocked up, did everything without having this desperation to be there. I remember a lot of people came very well prepared. A lot of them came from our, military backgrounds. They knew everything, but you could see what they're trying to look at. So one of the examples, so they had, so the first morning, they have a battery of tests. You sit from 6 in the morning until 12. And this all paper based. And some of these things would be, there flashes something on the screen you have to write, but they'll give you 1 minute. And my brain moves fast. I realize what they're trying to do. They'll show you a knife. Now, if you write murder, another one says kitchen, you see the psychological profile of you, and they will show similar things because they also know some people come prepared through training, etc. So you cannot, because they put you under tremendous time pressure, because there's not enough time to write a long story. So it'll simply flash. It's not even 1 minute. It'll just flash, right? Next flash. If you write too much long, you have missed it. So they basically say write 1 or 2 words, not more than that. Now I'm going back to so how do you build it? I'm saying, instead of looking at corporate, look at how you are doing it, right? Not the bullshit psychometric test they do in the corporates nowadays, where you go online and you do these things, right? Because see, that structure
What's your
of the,
feeling on, what's your opinion on like MBTI and all of this? Do you think all of that is pretty bullshit?
what is MBTI?
MBTI is like I don't know the full form, but it's,
There's the frameworks, right? They do these things. Then, so when I was in Accenture, they made me do the cultural assessment, etc.
yeah, it has like a gazillion questions and all of them are, some of them are similar to each other. And there's one question.
So I had to do the same thing before I started the MBA. LBS also makes you do it, but
Yeah, yeah. Make you do that.
and one of the thing LBS does it also. It asks you to give it to your bosses and others to also fill up on, give their feedback, which
Right.
makes sense, right? Because
Yeah.
one is my perception, they're also giving their feedback. But the problem is with the recruitment. So I had a big fight when I was in Accenture in Chicago. I went, and they're doing this thing, and they give their score, and they did it because I was going to be a faculty. To become a faculty, they give you a training. So it's one of the best thing of Accenture. I don't know whether they have it anymore. They have psychologists there when they do it. So I had a big argument with not argument. I asked a question. I said, "Can I ask a question?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, when you give this course, you will have a baseline against which you are giving. What cultural profile is this baseline completed with? I said, because it's Caucasian, Western, probably, the two sides
Sure,
of
it's fine.
Atlantic, the
But
two sides of Atlantic. And the guy starts laughing because you're right. So I said, it'll get better over time. The more population comes. I said, exactly, because I tell you why I raised, because that was much closer to my HP days. And for my HP work, I had to read a lot of book on trust. Now, no computer book talked about trust at that time. So you read other random like psychology books and stuff. Trust, different things in different cultures, right? Similarly, if you say, what do you think of trust? The American lot will write one way, the Italian will write it one way, and the Korean will write it one way, but they're all correct. But if you benchmark your distance, and that's when they say, and that guy was very good. He goes, no, you're absolutely right. He goes, you should not take it as 100%. What you should look at is the trend, generally what it is. Because if you are a Caucasian American, it's probably more accurate for you. If you are from Singapore, take the general hint. Don't feel like it has got you exactly. So going back to the point of what do I feel about these things, I had almost 10 years back, I think 10, 12 years back, or even more. All these companies started this process. Oh, we had before we had one interview, telephone interview, or we like to have, but can you do this online test? And online tests are two types, right? One is pure mathematical stuff they give. And you do pure mathematical stuff, you will get one type of people. Generally, in any part of the world where there's a lot of Indians, they will crack it. So we'll have a whole Harvard Business School full of Indians sitting there, or a London Business School full of Indians. And I think that is the problem, because I don't think these are selection process; these are elimination process. You are asking that because you are not trying to select; you are trying to eliminate.
Right.
The perspective is very different. Your focus at the initial stage is rejection, and you have reduced it down to a bunch of questions. But when you go and work in a company or any organization, you work with people, generally speaking. Where are you testing the softer skills? So the Apples of the world, the Googles of the world do exactly this, right? All your future team members will speak to you, all of these things, and everybody gets excited. That's the right way to do it. But it costs you a lot, right? Because you have to invest a lot of time, and then you may, after 6 rounds, realize we don't want this guy, but you've invested a lot. So I personally think no amount of written questions and responses, written or online, can ever give a sense of the person. If you think about it, right, theoretically, you and I would never be in the same place. You are the Mr. Whiskey, the smart guy. I'm the guy who never even sat for an engineering exam in India, right? So we'll never be in the same school. As a result, in India, we'll never be in the same organization either, most probably. You know that artificial barrier India has.
Hmm.
IIT guys only hire IITs, right? And all these things. But you look at the alignment we have in terms of our way of looking at things.
That's a
Those so
high alignment setup.
And that's why I'm saying that a test may not be able to pick it up unless you're doing a very multi-dimensional test, when you're not just asking objective question but also subjective, because we like each other because of subjective conversations, right? Opinions,
Hmm.
interpretations.
I think this is a product of the sort of the industrial complex, right? You have a setup where someone comes in and works for 8 hours, clock in, clock out. And most of the world actually operates that way. Given that we are in technology and business, we don't operate that way. We don't really switch off that much. But most of the world, manufacturing, for example, defense, most of defense is a clock in, clock out shift based setup where there's coverage for 24 hours. And that is just some guy like Ford dreamed up and said 8 hours per day for 5 days a week is a standard work day for whatever reason, right? And
But
then your entire education and your system shapes up over hundreds of years to set up the infrastructure to make that happen. So it's all like this, it's flowing down from, hey, like one guy like Adam Smith comes in and says you need to like labor theory and then
specialize.
specialization, and then Ford comes in and says, hey, one guy needs to work for 8 hours a day. And then after that, there's like a series of wars, and they figure out, okay, this thing works. It works because there's not a lot of knowledge work to be done there. The knowledge work is all being done somewhere else. And now there's like a fundamental disconnect or divide. Most work becoming knowledge work, most high value work, let me put it that way, becoming knowledge work, and the 8 hour workday, which is, it's like a serious problem now, where I think like the entire system is now creaking under the pressure of, like, even for me, all right, I went through the standard school system, standard university system, and suddenly I'm like a post 2000s graduate, right, which is when the IT industry really started to take off in India. And knowledge work really started to take off after Y2K. And suddenly I'm finding myself at this crossroads where I'm having to, like, I've been brought up with my dad and mom going and coming back 8 hours a day. And then suddenly it's like, hey, there's no off switch really. The world is flat. Thomas Friedman. And like, you're supposed to work across multiple time zones and all of this stuff. You need to coordinate with multiple people. And people don't have, basically what I'm trying to say is the mental tools to be able to take this apart and say, hey, okay, this is how I will cope with, or this is how I'll actually not cope, but even go one step further and get on top of the horse and start riding the tiger or horse, right? People don't have that, most of it.
I completely agree with you saying. People don't have it. And I think actually, so the point you made, right? One was you made a point about this is like the defense forces, right? The hierarchical constructed, you have to follow the rule, you have to follow the instructions. So you get almost like machines. I want you to be like a machine, etc. Almost in a way, I'm interpreting what you say. Actually, I would disagree, right? So again, it goes back to I'm biased in terms of my recent interest for the last 1 year and enjoyed listening to these guys, this special forces guys within any military, which is the most niche organization within that, the special forces. Now, and generally every single special force of anywhere in the world, they have a broadly similar way of selecting. So as long as it's a volunteer force, right? Like India, I'm not talking about, and even in a mandatory force, probably the special force would be a voluntary one within that. So if you take a like India, US, UK, where nobody's forced to go and do mandatory service, first level, you are joining with your own will. You're saying, I'm going to go. So whatever you may have multiple reasons. I want to travel the world. I like guns too. I want to play in various games, etc., etc. You join there. Then out of that, a very, very small percentage says, I want to go and try myself because see, there's no guarantee. And generally in special force selection process, so you're already a military guy, and within that you want to be part of a specialized organization, which again does the selection process. So you're already, you are already one of the selected in a organization. Then I want an even smaller organization, an elite organization, if we want to say that. Another selection process. Now, if you look at the selection process in special forces, so I know the Indian one, I know the US one, it works similarly, and I think the UK one also works similarly. Others may have variation, but I think it will be roughly the same. This is one place where now when you join, I'll give you the example, the Indian one, I'm listening to these guys. When you join, you're already an officer, right? You may be 23 years old, 24 years old, 26 years old, whatever it is, you are an officer. But there's another guy who is the other rank, another 20 to 24 years. In all the rest of the military, what will happen is when they go to another organization, the officer will have his officer rank and he will be treated as an officer. The other rank would be treated as another rank, and they'll have their different messes, different canteens, different clubs, all those things. Because the officer is above or the other rank is below, and that hierarchy will be maintained. In special forces, what they do, the ones I'm talking about, let's say take the India one. First thing they do is you may be an officer, but you have no rank. You come for probation. So you have no rank. So you may be a Naik Subedar, the other guy, and you may be a major. You cannot use your major rank. You cannot use your Naik Subedar rank. You are both probies. And as a probie, you stay in the same barrack and you're assessed in operational situation. Okay, initially what they'll do is they'll do some initial drugs. So they will try to get rid of you as early as possible. Because generally you are put in let's say you are going to Para 9 in India, which is one of the older ones. So they're probably roaming around in Kashmir all the time. So you volunteer, you end up in Para 9, whatever the administrative process is, you go to Para 9. Para 9 might be in an operational area somewhere. That's okay. You've come here. Okay, fine. Okay, he is your. So they'll attach someone who is your probation, who overlooks you, oversees you. He is in charge of running your assessment process. But your assessment process is nothing but basically slowly getting you to do their job. And you're doing that thing because you may have. So sometime you may be with 5 people, sometime you may be with 7 people, sometime you may be 2 people at the same time in that unit. What the rest of the unit is doing is everybody is an assessment officer. So the entire unit with whom you are attached, even the cook, is observing you and they take their feedback. So these guys were telling, because they go to operational areas, Sometimes the feedback why they reject people is, and this is where I'll use the Hindi and I will translate in case we get famous and someone wants to listen. They'll say, सांप तो बहुत अच्छा बंदा है, लेकिन सांप का लक अच्छा नहीं है, गोलीबारी ज्यादा होता है सांप के ऊपर. As in, sir is very good, but he's unlucky. He attracts too many gunshots. Because what they are effectively asking everybody is, would you be willing to put yourself with this guy in a very critical situation? Do you think you are? And it doesn't matter whether you are the officer or you're the cook, everybody's opinion counts. Now you see, these guys, once they actually cut it, they're given the most complex of the task. So I would say within an organization, actually, these are the most efficient part of that organization. And all of them will say, in special forces, everyone is a maverick. These are the guys who actually do not generally like rules. They will, and one of your requirement is to think out of the box, because you will be put in a situation where there is no
Exactly.
training to come out of
No,
it.
vision.
You have to, not only that, you will have to be able to be given a task. Situation may constantly change. You have to still fulfill that task. And you have to coordinate with six other guys generally, right? So I would say if you look at that model, actually you do need, and one of the things they would say is the best of the teams are where you have got diversity of things. So one guy may be a very good musician, another guy is a very good carpenter, another guy. So even as a characteristic I'm talking about, right? Those teams which are made up of people with very different characteristics, generally they tend to be very, very effective because you're looking at the same thing in so many different ways. So when you're working, you're trying to solve a problem together, you will have so many options. Now imagine, and I would say, this is my criticism of some of the Indian stuff, right? So just after I left, I was about to leave LBS. Through a recruitment agent, I got in touch with McKinsey. McKinsey looks at my CV and says, "Oh, you've got a very good CV. We're not worried about your experience, but in London, the demand is so high. You have to sit for this exam." I'm like, I don't like exam. I don't like exam. Because see, what they're doing, if you go to Bratislava office, there is no exam. Because one of my batchmates did become a partner in Bratislava office. And his route to McKinsey, the entire idea I gave him how to actually go about doing it. Because there's not enough competition. But if you want to go to New York office, London office, even Indian office, you have to go through that exam. And HR clearly told me, because we have this is one standard process we have to do for the high volume offices, because there has to be a standardized way for us to eliminate. But we know you have got more experience. We are not even worried about your industry experience. But please sit down, sit for the exam. Why would I sit for the exam after working for 10, 12 years? I mean, I could understand if it was after 4 years or 5 years of my graduation, because I knew I'd fail. Because you know why? Because I know why. I knew India will be full of Indian educated people, right? They will do maths faster than I can. They'll do better maths than I can. But I'll also guarantee in other stuff, I'll be always better than them. They will do math faster. But to increase the sales volume in a quarter is not always just about a calculation. Calculation doesn't give you the result. So I think the selection process and how you select will depend on what are you looking for. And I think the better performing companies, probably if you're looking to actually follow the value chain of, they have a fantastic bottom line, they have an amazing top line, and their top line and bottom line are not more it's not a direct correlation in the sense that their marginal cost of increasing the revenue is actually less. I am sure you will go and find something like this, either the selection process is good, and then they have good managers, they have a performance system which is much more objective, or all of those things, right? And I think that is what is very hard to get. It goes back to organization, right? How do you design the organization?
Yeah, I think that's key, basically. Having and also evolve the organization, because
Yeah.
that's the whole point of an organization. Goes back to the question that I was asking earlier, right? What is like, is it just a collection of people who are sitting together and having fun and doing the best work that they can? Like a bunch of shokunens type people who really love what they do. They're having ikigai or whatever, and they don't care about the externalities of it. The second thing is external driven, KPI driven, or what anything. It could be anything. It's like an external vision. It's a mark you want to make on the world or whatever it might be. And in both of these scenarios, it's basically important to try and understand what you were saying, which is how do those people actually get into that organization? If you place the wrong guy into even a company that's doing fantastically well, it's bad for both people. Like the whole
Absolutely.
point of an organization, the reason why it's called, in my opinion, organization is because it's an organism, right? It's like a living, breathing thing, which is comprised of living, breathing people
Have
that
you
become.
watched that film, the recent film, Ministry of Ungentlemanly War?
No, I haven't actually. Do you recommend it?
So yeah, this is the origin of special forces, right? Second World War,
Okay.
and it's based on true story. There'll be some theatrics there. You look at that 4 or 5 guys; they're all nutcases. Probably they individually, if you looked at their parameters, probably they are the worst people to put together. But what they do is unimaginable. So if you, and these are all based on real characters, now there will be some dramatization probably of it, but not too much because the actual storyline is based on a real story. Was it Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare? So this is the origin of SAS. Not SAS, not as a software as a service, but special air services.
UK Special Forces.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a band of, so one was in prison, they pull him out, some major captain. One was in this. So this is a band of, because so is the question is this, right? So I don't think the same process will work for everyone. Because I don't think in a operating theater you'd want people to be creative. You want people to be knowledgeable, good at what they do, and standardized railway. You don't want creative brain surgery every day. But if you are forming a team for, I don't know, a creative agency, you may want some random guys also there who can bring that completely weird or that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's what it is that your object, and I think it goes back to that objective, right? Good organization is one where, in some shape or form, the objective aligns well. As imagine it's a big corporation. So at the lowest level, or at a functional level, it may not be visible clearly exactly how you're hitting the corporate mantra. And I don't mean by corporate mantra that bullshit of we want to make world a better place, right? Those are all, I think currently people may call it woke. What I'm saying is a very straightforward, right? I need to be a very profitable business. If it's a for-profit company, I want to be a profitable business without doing unethical stuff. And I want to grow my revenue, a reasonable, normal stuff. But you organize yourself in a way that your accounts payable guy and the accounts receivable guy and also the product guy, they all are doing their job, but you've structured it in a way it all adds up. They may not clearly see the line exactly how it is done, but they should be able to understand, because otherwise you don't understand your relevance in the organization, right? And I wonder whether in a lot of companies this is the problem. The way they end up structuring themselves, people are not clear how they're actually why they're important to that organization. And I think nowadays there's also a lot of roles in companies, and this will show that I'm not that young anymore. I think there's a lot of roles in companies nowadays which are like compliance. It's impossible to show how they actually contribute to the overall objectives.
Mm,
But
yeah.
I mean, even that you can do in a way, right? So, for example, in UBS, I used to say there's a bunch of people who are doing the risk guys and stuff. It's like without them, you don't have the permit to operate. They are required, so they are required because they're a necessary requirement for you to be able to run the business. And if you can give them, make and also make others aware, right? That no, you, Mr. Rainmaker, you are only able to operate because my regulator says, okay, I will allow that guy to operate because this guy is keeping an eye on it. I think with big corporation, if they don't have it already, it might be a big challenge. But then the other counter argument will be a big corporation is big because it got it right at some point. Otherwise, they won't be that big. But they can mess it up. They can mess it up. Look at BP. So what do you,
Anyway,
so let me ask you a question. What do you
yeah,
think? You know, when Trump came, DEI became
what
less
was that?
popular.
Could you
The
repeat?
DEI,
DEI, yeah,
diver,
yeah, yeah.
the
DEI, yeah.
DEI
Yeah,
became
it
less
became less
popular.
popular. Yeah, that's a way
Deloitte,
to put it mildly.
yeah, Accenture dropped it. Deloitte dropped it, and quite a few others. Right? What's your view?
That's a broad.
Firstly, what's your view of DI? What's your view of DI?
I think it was a political game, right? See, I mean, I'll seem really right wing for saying this, but if you focus as a business, and I'm taking a more business standpoint, I'm not talking about social entrepreneurship
No,
or
no,
about,
I'm also talking from a business perspective. I'm talking about a
yeah,
business perspective.
business perspective. If you look at DEI or just, let's just forget about DEI for a second. Businesses work because bottom line is profit. You still have to make a profit. Otherwise, you're not a business. This is the definition of business. You make a profit when you're geared towards outcomes. When you look at outcomes, you really do not worry about or care about who or what process is giving you the outcome. Then that becomes a reverse or a pretty illogical way of looking at it, because then you are output oriented. Like, yeah, okay, who's making this PPT? Is it XYZ or ABC? Right. And yeah, so those are my, I think you got my view on the matter, right? Which is, when, if you cannot run a business by being output oriented, you have to run a business by being outcome oriented. And and by extension, or by basically taking a step back, one step logically back, if you have to be outcome oriented, or be non-output oriented, you have to be non-input oriented. So you really cannot define who will be the best person for the role until, I mean, it's got to be a skill set thing at the end of the day. Again, that part is arguable. I'm not saying that one person with only one specific skill set would perform well in a job role, but going back to my earlier point around the 8-hour setup and modern economy, right? Modern industrial economy. And by modern, I mean, like, basically from the is onwards. That's what we have right now, and that's what we operate upon, that framework. So I was never, when DEI came in, I was like, dude, I basically hacked my way through the forest of competition and you throughout my life, right? And now you're telling me that some
What you mean is you have to push through with a merit.
bottom line, that's it. It's not
Absolutely.
even, in fact, now I've even changed or nuanced that approach a little more to, I don't even care about merit, man. I don't care who you are, where you come from. I don't even care if you're an AI agent. If you can give me the exact same outcome as what I would get from a human
Outcome
being,
that you're looking for.
yeah.
So I'm probably even more right wing than you on this point, DI, because it came in front of me. I really still remember UBS 2017 after I went second time. This thing came and there was this email about DI things. So they were, okay, you may have to edit this part out, right? When you do it. So there were these three guys, Chris,
No,
me, and
I'm not going to edit this out for sure. This is the spiciest part
okay,
of the call.
the three of us, right? Me, another Indonesian guy who was there for a long time, and Chris. And we used to be quite politically incorrect. I will say randomly. The other Indian origin guy and me, we both had by that time shaved head. So the Chris used to call us Gandhi. So that's so that's why I said politically incorrect. So Gandhi. And Chris is a very close friend of mine. And we used to joke this. So we're like, where you go? Went for training. Did you go for DI training? Yeah, fuck that DI training, right? And for us, it was like, and we used to say, what is the purpose of this thing? And it was all about diversity, right? It was all about diversity. So initially, it was about diversity, equality, and then inclusion, or
Inclusion.
whatever it is, inclusion,
Inclusion.
right?
Yeah.
By the way, later it changed into, it's much after I left UBS, diversity, equality became equity, especially in America. Equity is a different thing.
I honestly do not know the definition. I only know the
Uh,
standard
well,
definition, but
I
equity.
would say DI has contributed a lot in getting Donald Trump and his. Uh, well, Donald Trump, I don't criticize him. I said he's a feedback from society about certain things. Anyway, and we used to discuss, and I said, see, you take one white guy from Eton and a black guy from Eton. Have you fulfilled our diversity quota? They'll have exactly the same mindset because they're both coming out of Eton. So the whole damn thing in Europe, at least, I don't know about America, I'm assuming it's similar. It was skin deep. It literally looked at skin. I'm saying, no, you go at you know, neurological diversity. That's what you should look for. Then you'll have a good diversity. So the three guys may look all white or all black or all brown or all pink, but the brains are all different. That's the diversity you should be looking for. And that's why, no, I am not this. So that's why I always thought, again, so many jobs were created on the back of that.
Yeah. Like I'm pretty sure there were a few billions of dollars that the ESG industry made out of DEI consulting.
Billions, I'll tell you, more than billions. So I forgot the terminology. So there's a whole thing on ESG, right? ESG, to some extent, I can still understand. It's the environmental
ESG I
part.
can get behind. ESG is like,
Sustainability
I
part,
mean, but the subsumation of DEI into ESG just because they could not create
that is the problem.
together.
That is the problem. That
That's the
absolutely. ESG in its truest form, I can understand. So old industries may be screwing up the environment. We would like to protect it a little bit. Sustainability again is of course no, subjective thing, but still I can understand it, and governance. If you look at even in NCC, I used to have the ESG thing, right? EY then benchmarked us against all 5,000 or 500 in NSC, and then we were scoring pretty well. You know how diverse NCC is. Everybody speaks Telugu. It doesn't even reflect India, but you are somehow getting all
yeah,
these scores
DEI
because
was. I mean, I don't
I
know
think though
how it became such a massive thing, and Trump, I disagree with him on a bunch of things. But one thing I have to give the guy is he has a fantastic market research team. He has a fantastic like data analysis
I
or sentiment
I
analysis guy.
I think he's instinctive. I think I doubt he has got a market research team. I think he's instinctive. I think he just goes by his common sense because you know what DI and everything did. It basically asked people to not have common sense and not operate on common sense. And common sense went out of the window because
But
the
just to qualify, like earlier, I made a very qualified remark, right? Which is we are speaking from a business perspective. Bottom line is you cannot run. If you are talking about a social entrepreneurship, for example, there's a government there's a lot of government programs in India. One is called Manrega. There's one in
yeah,
Andhra
Manrega, I know Manrega. Yeah, yeah. Copied from
Pradesh
Brazil.
called DWCRA, affectionately shortened to Dwakra, which was a very famous. Is still operating. This is a purely women-driven thing, and it's a rural women social enterprise microfinance setup that enables them
Mhm.
to create small cooperative self-help groups and manufacture, do whatever they want, build businesses, whatever it is. In these scenarios, DEI, I'm all for it. But if you're telling me that you want to drive top line and you want to drive bottom line, and you're telling me I also, in addition to the existing talent crunch and all of this, you also are telling me that N out of my, three out of the five people I need to hire need to be in a specific whatever, right? That is not going to fly.
I'll tell you the problem of DI when I'm socially quite conservative in the sense that I'm very liberal on many things, but the certain things are social conservative. For example, science and facts. Don't tell me there are three, X and Y something else chromosome wise. It's only to biology has proved it unless someone rewrites a new biology book that I have to read. So to say no, woman has a different. UK Supreme Court had to pass a law to say what is a woman. Come on, that's common sense gone out of the window. I understand there's a small percentage of population, and statistically, it's a small percent of population who may have this gender issue where it's not clear which gender they are. Nobody's denying it, but do not say that this could apply to the whole 100%.
Medically examined. It's not like, I mean, you need to have a certificate from a doctor if you want to identify as a role.
Exactly. But you cannot say today I feel like a woman, so I'm a woman, and tomorrow I feel like. And I told you this story. I found out this person in this bank who was half the week man, another half the week woman, and we were just joking. It was over a beer, and someone told me, and I had access to the HR system. I had only read-only access. I'm like, no way. I'm like, how can it be? Because I have seen this thing. It has got only gender is a fixed field. It has gender. This bugger must be something in the system. And then they go, can you find out? Because majority of so because of my work, HR gave me access, and I said only read-only access. I could not even. I could download it. But they set it up in a way not all the fields, right? So so that you don't get the salary. Salary field was not available to me at all. But gender, the location, gender, the things I needed, I had it. Then asked, I have never met this person. He's in another office, but he's famous, or she, or each, whatever the damn thing is. And I'm like, no, I said, I'll double check again, but I don't think you can go in the morning and change the field. It's a static field. And then I realized the bugger is actually marked as a man. I'm like, HR wise, the bugger is a man. He can think whatever he is. But the thing is, that's the HR system. Second thing is, even if a small percentage has this issue, I don't know how much you were, but there was this whole issue that anybody can go to anyone's toilet. I mean, I have no issues in going to toilet, but where there are gents' toilet and ladies' toilet, people should go to their respective toilet unless they made a mistake because they're too drunk and couldn't read it properly. But to say, no, it's all, you cannot, Raghav can turn up tomorrow and go and say, no, I feel like a lady today, so I'll use the ladies' toilet. That is not common sense. And I think this is what the Trump side is saying, like, it doesn't make sense to 99% of the people in the world.
Yeah. Operating on common sense has become even more uncommon than before.
Absolutely.
And looks like we'll be outliers, eventually outliers just for operating on common.
Say, if you go to Trump second time, I'm not saying he's the messiah, but he is a feedback of a large part of the society, which was over time through globalization, etc., has been disenfranchised, who were socially conservative, because these are from the rural Rust Belt, for example, in US and equivalent in every other country, who not only lost their jobs, they used to be, their grandfather worked in that company, then their father worked in the company, they were working in the company and they got sacked. And if it is UK, for example, your job ended up in Poland somewhere because the factory moved there, or say equivalent, right? Or China or whatever. Then socially, then they started realizing everything they knew as normal is not normal anymore. Everything they practice actually is criticized, broadly speaking. So you are in a situation where your own world has become a strange thing to you. And it is being done by people, not by you. You have not changed. Others are asking you to change. And I think it reached a catalyst point where the silent majority then voted. And the silent majority voted. Sometimes you reject others. Trump's selection was rejection of others, not a selection.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And then
Going back to
yeah,
like to our whole rejection versus selection
absolutely.
discussion for organizations, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So how do you do this? And it has an outcome, right? When you rejected everybody else, so I got the chair. The, out, the outcomes you will get may not actually make you happy because you did not evaluate on what the proposal was from this. Or what someone can bring on the table, be it an employer, or be it Trump. You basically said, I don't want any one of those. Now, what you get in the end may make you unhappy. And I think it's the same thing with employee or any team selection organization. If you focus on what you want to reject, you will absolutely clearly will not have what you don't want. But it's not necessary as a result that what you will get is what you would want. Right? Set
Completely
theory,
agree with
basically. Set theory. It's not an overlapping set. When I speak to you, I feel smarter. Stuff comes out of my mouth that's
that's a you thing. That's not a me thing. I don't
no,
automatically
that's
make you smarter.
no, no.
You're already
It's
smart to begin. You just feel smarter.
now you
It's all
trigger things. These are all suppressed deep inside, never comes out.
when I extract it. I am the
No,
miner of feeling.
catalyst. You see, catalyst. You can have the ingredients, but you need the catalyst to make the outcome. But seriously, this kind of conversation is absolutely rare. Absolutely rare. Some of the things we discussed here, if you zoom out of the when selection, what you're looking for, if you do those things in an Indian context, from the point of birth of a child to their jobs, to their marriages and jobs, when it doesn't work out right, I think when you watch the Indian news channels nowadays, you see the reflection of it. Such poor quality.
Oh yeah. I'm watching these nowadays. Like for the last couple of days, I've been watching the news channels just to kind of
Last night I only slept for 2 hours because I got obsessed. So I have
yeah,
obsession of current affairs. So this
right.
thing happened, right? And I don't have a proper TV, so I watch it through YouTube. It's my TV, but through the smart TV, YouTube. I look at it because for me these are fascinating things, right? But the commentary, the approach, the lack of understanding of nuances, lack of self-control, emotion driving their every word.
I
I mean,
think
they need proper training.
like one insight I had last night, and I slept well last night, but I mean, I slept for more than 5 hours or so. I had to wake up really early today, but I was up until 2 a.m. watching
Mm.
TV and also looking at Twitter.
I went at
Solely out of
3 o'clock in the
curiosity,
morning here.
I don't think a lot of people actually slept last night. They were all watching.
I mean, it is a major thing, to be honest. It's understandable for people to
It's
pay. Yeah.
a generation defining event. A lot of us have not seen, I mean, most, like the bulk,
Actually, I would
the bell curve of India has not experienced a war.
absolutely, and not only that, I think it's not a generational. I think depending on what happens and what the outcome, it can be a multi-generational outcome. If you can solve it somehow,
Yeah.
because this bleeding, nobody understands the cost of it.
Yeah, nobody understands. But yeah, anyway, going back to the thing, I mean, this could be a very, if we start on this, it could be like
No, no, the 15 sessions.
yeah. But I was again going back to the thing, I was watching the TV on YouTube, skipping multiple channels and so on. My insight was, hey, these guys are actually providing a reasonable alternative to Indian soaps. It's like
Yes.
it's consumable reality TV that uh, that replaces soap, or basically it's like a guilt-free Indian soap. Like if you watched Big Boss or if you watched like Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi or something, you'd be judged for it. But if you're watching any of these TV channels, you can get away by saying you're watching current affairs.
Oh, actually, no, actually, you know what? You are right. Absolutely right. I'll just change one thing. It's not alternate soap. It's actually soap. It's soap based on right now what is happening or 15 minutes back what is happening. It's actually soap. Arnab Goswami, last night at 2 o'clock, I was laughing, really laughing loud. Because this guy said, I don't even remember what he said, and his whole theatrics. I'm like, you are a Rhodes scholar for God's sake, and you have brought yourself down to this level.
Man, the guy is
But
running
he's very
for.
smart. He has got maximum number of
He's playing for the
advertisement.
gallery.
Absolutely.
He is Trump. He's a
Absolutely.
manifestation, or he is Trump.
And the other thing, sorry, I will finish it I will make two statements and finish it. Other thing, one thing I realized is all these journalists, majority of them go to Columbia Journalism School and study. I think what they do is they go to their Indian group, eat and do everything with them, and miss the local culture and the nuances. So, when Trump said it's a shame, my understanding of British culture and a little bit of interaction, I think he is basically winking his eyes and says Indians go and do whatever you want. It's like it's a little bit of a sarcastic. That's a shame. It's a little bit underhand, right? Because I have to say something. It's a shame, and he's not the smartest guy. He's not Obama. He doesn't have the mastery of words. It's a shame that today how the TV was pissed off that JD Vance has said it has got nothing to do with us. We should not get involved. Blah blah. Probably is giving you a time to do whatever the hell you want to do.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
messaging. Why are you unable to actually get that nuance? It's a message to two sides. Pakistan, when he reads it, he goes, "Oh my God, he's not going to come and intervene and save me." And probably with the Indians, the conversation they had, this is a signal that you have some time for you guys to do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
What?
the art of reading between the lines and the art of understanding international relations is sadly,
Because
I think,
because again, I go back when your selection process is exam questions, nuances are not a skill that you're testing people that do you get it or not. So that is one. The second thing I would say is it's still an ongoing thing. Two things I have to say. I don't agree with everything Modi does or his team does. You have to say fantastically done.
oh my God,
As a,
they've
as a,
been wargaming it for, they have played this out. They have had wet dreams about this for 40 years.
and he has been preparing it for a long time. You see all the pieces. And another thing, I would say it's a good thing for India because I think the Indian governance culturally has been shifted because this will become a template for future crisis, right? You see the way they did the mock drill. Today, they have instructed every single healthcare professional in every state their holiday should be cancelled. Probably it's trying to scare Pakistan, but at the same time, that updates your SOP, right? Next time you say, "Have I done my?" Earlier, India used to pre-planning. I see a little bit more pre-planning now. It's still close to time, still better than after the fact. So
Yeah.
I'm impressed by these guys.
Yeah, I mean, super impressed. One other insight I had this morning was upticks, talking about upticks. People
The two,
will gravitate, like Gen Z will now gravitate more towards military services. I think this
yes,
is actually going to improve the chances of the military getting some really, really good people because
yes,
they've now seen how effective we are at drones. There's all these
yes.
Gen Z gamers who are going to
I
love.
can guarantee you, even I can guarantee you, nobody in India would have thought drones can go up to Lahore,
Yeah.
evading Pakistan. Two things, right? Pakistan may have been this shit always. But the politicians on this side and the decision takers didn't have the balls to take that risk. The
Balls
second
and also
alternative, the second, yeah,
timing as well, right? It's a factor of timing. I wouldn't say we would have been this successful if we had done this 5 years back.
no, you
Or
won't because you
yeah,
couldn't, because you didn't have the technology, you didn't have the capabilities, etc., that you have now.
I mean
Absolutely.
it's the technology piece is one piece that I agree on. It's also a multi-dimensional squeeze. It's like the Balochis are also in a they're in a sweet spot. They can be harvested right now, right? They're ready for the this thing harvest.
Plus the confidence they
That
get from
diplomatic
Trump.
game has been going on for a while. The Gwadar got failed. It's like a failed project at this point. So
Yeah.
Karachi is the
And,
only.
and, and, and I think the other thing, so my reading would be, and I'm not overly biased. I think I instinctively get these things not too wrong. America has decided for maybe to suppress China that India is going to be a close partner for it. Europe is not its priority anymore.
Yeah,
It
that's why I'm
sees its
saying at
biggest
this
threat from
time.
China. So geopolitical timing is perfect, but you can have fantastic geopolitical context. But if you don't have the right set of people with the right sized balls, you can still mess it up.
I agree. That's why I was saying earlier that leadership, right? The point you made around leadership, which is to
Absolutely.
take the guy out. That's why I disagreed with you on that. So like I was saying about the multi-dimensional squeeze, a huge part of it is also Pakistan's inability to manage their economy properly.
Absolutely. See,
All of it, actually.
so the exact modus operandi, your exact plan now is different, right? 5 years back, you could not have done as much, but you would have the intent. I am saying the intent that is shown here is not the intent that was shown previously. You may not have been able to execute it because you did not have certain things in the right place. I don't think intent was there. I was listening to a NSG commando. I don't know. To be honest, I didn't watch it after 15 minutes. I thought he may have gone overly right wing after retirement and he may be talking shit because I did not have the interest to go and look out all this thing. But this guy was telling, if it is correct, it's dangerous. Mumbai attack, as usual, they left within 20 minutes because they were part of the standby team. Went to Delhi airport, loaded all the stuff in an Air Force plane, and then they were told the home minister will come and give them a motivational speech. And the guy says, NSG doesn't need motivational speech. I
Yeah,
needed my motive. Waited for 2 hours. And then they were told, this plane has got a problem. There's another plane coming from Chandigarh. That's what he says. That's why they reached the next day morning. So
God.
wait, unload everything, load it again, everything. Then they left. And then they said, basically, he was trying to accuse the home ministry tried everything to stall because they had other interests to let these guys out. Now, I don't know whether it's true or false.
No,
It could
I
be.
mean, people come up with all sorts of explanations
Yeah.
post fact,
So I did
and
not
I'm
watch the
pretty
entire
sure
thing.
it was just stupid.
No,
Stupidity.
one accusation that was made by some of his bureaucrat was there was some guy called Patel who was the home minister at that time, the Congress guy. The accusation was made while this thing was going. He was changing his clothes every few hours because apparently he was very sensitive about his how he looked. Now, when I add the two together, it may not be completely out of whack because the other no, I would tell you, and literally we'll finish it here. I think there's a reason why the BJP government this time seems to be a better organization at a crisis time. I would say this goes back to their organizational culture. You see, they don't have a family from where which decides everything, right? So at the lowest level, the merit does move up, whatever the criteria of merit is. So Rajnath Singh being the defense minister, he has come from the bottom. His name doesn't mean anything. You prove your damn thing, whatever you are. You get spotted, you get pulled up, you are given more responsibility. You learn, you are given more responsibility. A collection of them are sitting there. Those guys are taking the decision now. And as a result, you are seeing some of this. Now, look at Congress, how it used to operate. You have to lick the ass of the family and then you can go straight. Fundamentally different caliber, right? I think that may actually play a role.
I mean, that's the whole role, actually. That's the bottom line, actually.
I think so. I think so too. That's my theory, right?
Yeah,
As
it's
usual,
timing. And oh,
fantastic.
yeah. So there is this, and let's end it on this note, which is I wanted to make this point around the word Lakshmi, right? A lot of people think it's just wealth. It's not just wealth. It's
Well,
actually it's a resources plus timing. It's a combination of two things. So it's like you need to have the right resources at the right time.
right time. Absolutely.
You do not have the like if you have $1,000 in your pocket right now and all the stores where you want to go buy a cool
Close.
glass of water are closed, it doesn't mean anything.
Absolutely. It's just $1,000 you have.
In many scenarios, actual cash doesn't mean anything. In many scenarios, it could be that your goodwill or non-cash resources come into play.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example, right? So I had a very close Gujarati friend in Calcutta. They have been in Calcutta for many years. We're in the same school. And I used to hang out. They had a timber business. So I used to hang out in there because he used to study on top of his father's office. And I used to hang out there. And they used to tell me the stories. He used to tell me stories. In that, it's a very successful, very close community. And they would say, in that Gujarati community, if any of the kids have gone off the rail, the whole community will step in. So now imagine your father may not be as loaded. You have business, but you may not have. The community will collect money together. Tell the guy, you take and start something. will help you. You go and start something. No loan agreement, no nothing, just on reputation, because it's expected. You can make a loss, is not a problem, but you will give a full good effort, and it's expected that you will return the money. Because if you don't return the money, you fall in the eyes of your community. So here, it's not really the cash you need. You can actually get cash on the back of your standing in this. So because your father never defaulted, you are a good family. He is a good guy. He just needs a little bit of a support. So I think in many cases, I think the whole leverage model of business is all what you need resource, and then someone else has the money. You take someone else's money and you put it in and you make money, and then you return the money later. On that note, I think now I'm talking rubbish. Time to close.